This week we continue our interview with Justin Rhodes of AbundantPermaculture.com. Justin's going to share with us how to enjoy every last bit of that chicken you just choked, procedures for sick birds, the mating habits of chickens, and what his favorite breeds are and why. Plus, our listeners get their most burning cock questions answered. All that and more on the Nutrition Heretic podcast. Aloha and Melek Aliki Maka, heretics. This is Adrienne here, the Nutrition Heretic. December marks our 1-year anniversary since we started the Nutrition Heretic podcast. In that time, we've interviewed some of the most pioneering and controversial heretics in the field of nutrition, health, and everything that goes along with that, from farming to spirituality. So next year we have plans to get experts on other controversial issues such as raw milk and to weigh in on vaccines. Plus, we'd like to add some live Q&As to get your personal questions answered, how-tos on shopping on a budget, and even some cooking demos. So, when you're doing your holiday shopping this year, please think cock. Why? Because 50 Ways to Eat Cock is a crowd pleaser, and everybody loves to stuff their throats with cock. So if you'd like to see some of this content coming up next year, please go to Amazon.com and look up 50 Ways to Eat Cock, Frenching Your Food, or Honey Lingus. You can also go to nutritionheretic.com/books. And look, if you can't afford the books, please share it on social media because maybe some of your friends could. Thank you so much. It's been great serving you. See you next year.
Fat is bad for you.
I just pop a pill and I'm fine.
Meat is murder. It's time for bad food punishment. It's time for real nourishment. It's time for the Nutrition Heretic.
The following program is provided as information only and may not be construed as medical or health advice. It is not intended to diagnose, treat, or cure any disease. No action or inaction should be taken solely on the basis of the information provided here. Please consult with a licensed healthcare professional or doctor on any matter relating to your health and well-being. Yeah, so we had a massacre last week, just in time for Thanksgiving. And that's my next question. Predators. And I'm gonna make this a little bit difficult for you because I don't have a farm. First of all, I rent. And I have just a little, maybe, quarter of an acre, maybe a little third of an acre plot that I'm on. I'm in a neighborhood for all intents and purposes. I don't necessarily want it to look Beverly Hillbillies, if you know what I mean. Yeah. Not that what you have does, but when it's in a small space, it does begin to look like that, right? You can, but you have your setup. But then, when you're in a neighborhood, what are some of the good solutions that someone might be able to take? Because basically we've got mongoose in our neighborhood. I don't even know if you know what the heck that is. It's a nasty little rodent. Really? And then, but it was a dog. It was a neighbor's dog that jumped a fence and came into our yard, axed one in our yard, ran off with another one and dumped it at the neighbor's house, and then took out another one in its own yard. So what are my options here?
I guess somebody on a small scale like that in the neighborhood needs to keep something clean and looking good would be a chicken tractor because, you could make it look as good as you want. You could, my chicken tractor, I have a do-it-yourself chicken tractor on my website at Abundant Permaculture. You could build it with nice tin. I used old tin, reused tin. But it would look pretty nice if you built it new and didn't use scrap tin. I actually like the scrap tin look. It looked like look like you're in one of these cool coffee shops or something. It kind of had a heritage hipster look to it.
Yeah.
But You could do that, and then just have maybe 2 or 3 hens in there. No roosters, because roosters are going to make the noise. They're going to aggravate the neighbors, and the neighbors are going to be the one that call the authorities, and
Well, we've
that's
got
what
roosters.
then
I
going
don't
to
know
get
if
you in
you
trouble.
heard, but there were some roosters crowing just just a
No,
few
I
minutes ago.
didn't.
Like pretty
I
much the
like the
entire time
sound.
we've been talking, the roosters started up.
There you go.
But yeah, they're
So
not my
yeah,
roosters. We have roosters everywhere, literally. And as a matter of fact, that dog has 2 roosters in its own yard, and it doesn't bother them. It came into my yard to wreak havoc.
well, it's a beautiful sound. It's a sound of sustainability to me because when you have that male, then that means of course you're gonna have the females, and you can breed and you're safe. I mean, you're gonna be okay.
Right,
No matter what
right,
happens, if you have a male and a female of some sort of livestock, you can be sustainable because they
right,
produce
right. Yeah.
themselves.
Hey, and this, I was just talking to someone else who's a homesteader, maybe about a month ago, and she said to me that she got rid of all of her roosters because she didn't like the idea of incest. What's that?
You'll only have to worry about you might not like that idea as a human, but with chickens it's all right. The
Right.
only one you don't want to work the only one you got to watch out for is a straight up brother and a straight up sister or vice versa. They both have the same exact mom and the same exact dad.
Mm-hmm.
Then you could come into trouble. Not necessarily guaranteed, but you could. You can breed a father to a daughter all day long. It sounds gross to us, but I guess so does eating bugs. I mean, they're different species,
I
and I'm
might eat
sure
a
there's.
bug first, though. I gotta say.
Yeah, I guess so. I guess so. That bad example there. You could totally do that. I mean, we're talking about a different species here.
Right, right. Yeah, it's like one of those things I didn't want to have to think about it, and then she said that, and I was like, because my chicken, the hen, she's like half leghorn, half fighting chicken, whatever the heck that means.
Okay.
And there were 5 babies that looked like her, and then there were 6 black brown ones that she hatched out, but I don't know how much of her DNA is in those, if any.
Yeah.
She may have just sat on them for someone else for all I know.
Yeah. To simplify things, let's say you only have one rooster and one hen, and they breed. The only people you got to worry about, the only chicks you got to worry about, chickens, is those. Let's say they have 5 chicks. You don't want those chicks breeding each other.
Right.
But most of the time, you're going to have one. Like I said, you're going to have one rooster to 8 hens.
Right.
And then if you're going to really go intentionally, that's it too. You need to intentionally breed. You don't need to just do flop breeding where anybody breeds whoever. You separate them in the springtime,
Mm-hmm.
and let's say you wanted to keep going and you had the rooster and the mama hen, the original. Well, next year you might set out the rooster and his best daughter and that original hen and let that rooster breed those 2 hens.
Okay.
See what I'm saying?
I
And that
think.
would be safe. Now
Yeah.
he can go in there and mate and breed all he wants, whoever he wants. It doesn't matter. Especially if you're just collecting the eggs and eating them. It
Right.
doesn't matter. You only have to worry about that at all if you're going to actually save those eggs and hatch them out into chicks.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, let them breed whoever they want to breed. I mean, it sounds weird and gross, but
Right.
it's okay.
Right.
It's
Okay.
not going to hurt anything.
Okay. Is there a way to attract a stray rooster to just come and, mix up the DNA a little bit?
Oh man, that'd be wonderful if you could do that. Because those things are, it's unheard of. That it's ironic to me that you got the wild chickens. Because here, you're not going to have that.
Right.
But I think that'd be a blessing if somehow you could intermediate them, bring them in because they are so if they're able to survive out in the wild, they've got some awesome genetics.
Yeah, for sure. For
Okay,
sure.
and they're eating off the land. Nobody's having to help them. To me, that's ideal. Somehow, you could somehow lure them in. I don't know. I don't
Right,
know how you
because they
could.
do come over to my side every once in a while, but it's usually
Food.
when I we have a guava tree that
You could
drops
totally
food.
set out food for them,
Yeah,
and then let yours be free too. Maybe
yeah.
I don't know if yours are always captivated, but you could let them be free at least maybe an hour or so in the afternoon.
Well, that's what we usually do is we let them out. And this is part of that Korean system where we let them out about an hour. And it depends because sometimes we go into town, which is an hour away. So we'll let them out at, 11 o'clock in the morning and they just go back at the end of the day.
Nice.
But for the most part, we let them out from about 5 o'clock. Right now it's getting dark at 6. So we let them out at 5, 4:30, somewhere in there, and let them roam and scratch. And, I'm trying to, because they definitely think we're like food stamps. They're like, oh, they're here, food, and they chase us down. But we're trying to, let them scratch in the garden and, and they go over to some of the neighbors' houses and then they come back. Except for, when the dog killed them. So we're looking for, trying to see, can we, we call the mom, we call her Chica. And we're like, Chica, you ever think of, bringing a dude home? So someone else in here to just kind of mix it up a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Well, I do have, before I let you go, I have some questions, from our audience, and I did not necessarily expect it to get so many questions, but I think people just have a lot of questions about chickens. And I know that you have a movie, so we'll definitely touch on that as well. Because I know that'll come in handy for a lot of people. So first is from Jennifer Pentland, and she wants to know, we kind of touched on a lot of this, so, don't feel like you have to address everything specifically. But she said, I was just wondering about what he suggests for sustainable way to keeping chickens from meat and eggs on this island. We're on the big island of Hawaii, and we're actually in an area that is probably not too different from where you are. We don't get the snows, but we do get, cool nighttime temps. And so in the winter, we'll probably be down to about 40 degrees at night.
Okay.
And then ranging as high as 80, 82 during the day. So anyway, is there a sustainable way to keep chickens on the island where it's too expensive to bring in feed and free ranging is too free, which she's alluding to the fact that we have, there's just chickens everywhere. And then also the fact that we have mongoose. And then, is there, do you think that the chicken tractor is the best idea, or do you have an even better solution for that? And I know that you do some electric fencing that you said is movable, right? So
yeah, if you're trying to blend both those, where you have to protect against the mongoose and cut your feed costs, you're getting a little tricky because you could totally in Hawaii easily 12 and you should take permaculture would teach us to see out in the wild, and you see all these wild chickens, you'll say, oh, well, this is probably a wonderful place for a domestic chicken. How can we copy what's happening there in nature, but without letting them be subject to the attack of the mongoose? So you're going to have some intervention there. Well, if you had a chicken tractor or something, because your highest priority is the mongoose, otherwise you could have 12 chickens to an acre, probably way more than that in Hawaii, especially given that you have so many wild that are thriving.
Mm-hmm.
But then you have the mongoose problem. So you're going to have an intermedium there, which means you're going to have to feed them something of your own. Either you're buying it and bringing it in, or you're providing it for them. But some things that to cut down on it would be a chicken tractor that you move around every day, 3 times a day. I mean, the more you move it, the better. That will give them more array of natural foods in their grass and the bugs on the land. You could also upscale that if you have a little more property and get a chickshaw. I also tell how to build a chickshaw, which will hold up to 50 birds, and you move that around and have an electric poultry net around it, which would give them 1,200 to 1,700 square feet of area. So the chicken tractor is a small scale, and on both of those, you could let them completely out for an hour or two in the evening. I don't know when the mongoose goes around, if it's during the day or at night.
I don't know, they're bitches. I see it sometimes during the day, in the morning. But I have heard that they wreak a lot of havoc at night. But I do see one between, like I said, I live next to the brew house, between the brew house and the house in front of me. I see it just running back and forth all freaking day. So,
So with the mongoose, you could get a guard goose. One goose with your flock will protect them. Also, if they are moving around at night, mostly just shut your birds up at night. Be religious about that, and shut them up every night. And that's going to prevent most of your problems, at least here in cold temperate. Most of our predators that happen at night.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Okay, cool. Now let's see. Laura Childs wants to know about how long should chicken litter be composted before using in the garden? Is one type of litter, cedar, shavings, straw, etc., preferred? And then she's got a couple of follow-up questions, or maybe not follow-up, but other questions about dual breed chickens, or sorry, dual purpose breeds, and then what's your favorite breed? And then about cockerels. Is there an optimal time to get rid of those dudes before they start fighting with each other?
If you don't know what you're doing and you're not sure, let it compost for 6 months. The quick and easy answer, but not great for you, is that you can put it on your garden as soon as it's compost. I mean, you can create compost in as little as 14 days. If you make your pile big enough, you have your mix right, and you turn it every 2 days. You can have it in as quick as 2 weeks. My system, where I turned it once a week, and the chickens helped me turn it, I would have compost in 4 weeks. If you want a cold compost where you just throw in a bunch of stuff, you don't know if your mixture's right, let it sit there for at least 6 months. Grab your hand in there. If you pick it up and it smells earthy and somewhat fresh, it's compost, and you can put it on there. If you can certainly recognize manure or it stinks, just give it some more time. Actually, if it stinks, give it some more carbon material, which is more of the brown, like the what would you have there? Leaves or husks, stuff like that. Old hay, things like that.
Yeah.
Shavings, wood chips.
Yeah, I'm really lucky because I have bamboo in my backyard. Yeah. One of the things I learned from Master Cho, who's developed this Korean system, is that the fresh bamboo is actually very good for strengthening the intestines of the chickens. And then, but we also have all the litter underneath the bamboo, so we put that in there for them as well, and they scratch through that. And I'm telling you, as soon as we move them or just decide to switch out what's down there, we throw that. I throw it in big pots, and I've been putting my plants in it, and it's thriving. I'm not giving it anything, but that might also be a little bit of that lactic acid bacteria and the things that you were talking about with the fermented foods, because that's helping to break down their waste a lot faster, and you're getting that very forest-like smell versus that manure-y smell coming out of it. And then her last question was about the cockerels.
Yes.
Best time to get rid of those dudes.
The best time to get rid of cockerels, let's say you've gotten a dual-purpose breed, you've gotten a mix, you've gotten male or females, you don't know how many or what of each sex. Well, the best time to butcher them at dual-purpose is 16 weeks. If you go any further than that, their meat is going to be too tough. So I would grab them around then. Will it kill you if you do it 12 weeks or 18 weeks, even 20, even more? I mean, you get on past 16 weeks, you can still butcher and process them. It's just going to be a much slower cook. It's going to be in the stew pot or a crock pot, something like that, and you're not going to be able to fry it or bake it, and it's not going to be you could, but it won't be as tender as the meat you're used to.
Right, exactly. And, that's actually, because the ones that I had slaughtered with my friend, they were at least that old, and most of them were pretty tough, so we had, so all of my recipes involve some kind of steaming, stewing, hour and a half cooking process, and they're still delicious. And in fact, in many cultures, like you brought up Asian culture, the cock is kind of like the thing, like that's what you eat. That's especially when you're sick, when you're pregnant. It's one of the most, it's considered, in lore throughout the world, to be the most nourishing of the chicken. is that cockerel. As a matter of fact, did you know, we were talking about the wattles, the collagen that they use in some of these like arthritis rubs and things comes from that.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So just think of that, and especially we're talking about, the gelatin coming out of that broth and all that good stuff. Really, really so incredibly nourishing for the body. And then what's your favorite breed?
I would say the Rhode Island Red. I like the dual purpose breeds, but even to not be as specific, I would say my most favorite breed would be the one I can get from an experienced breeder near
Mm,
me that is proven on that land. Like the Rhode Island Ram might not be the most productive there in Hawaii, and you might not have a nice breeder who's nearby to be a nice support. I went with the Black Australorp because I had a very wonderful and competent breeder nearby who now ends up being there for me when I need to know and be coached through setting eggs,
okay.
or what happened when I lost my King Daddy rooster for whatever reason, heart attack or whatever, and he was my main guy.
Oh
And
man.
how do you just replace that? Well, my breeder was like, "I'll give you another rooster." And
Right.
that is good and priceless to have, and then to bring in that community. But if you're on your own and you have to order something, the top dual purpose breeds are the Rhode Island Red, the Black Australorp, and the Barred Plymouth Rock.
Okay. Okay. Oh wow, that's good to know. Yeah, I know that you had about 6 months ago gotten a bunch of Cornish cross.
Yeah.
Any particular reason why you chose those that time? Was it?
Yeah, those are created or designed or bred for meat production. They're
Yes.
not dual purpose, they're not sustainable, but what they are, freezer, if I eat a chicken a week for a year, I had a year's worth of meat in my freezer in 51 days. They're just
Wow.
modern marvel in the sense that, everybody scared me from it. Oh, they're going to get crippled, but blah, blah, blah. They're going to die in the heat. I think it's baloney because I did it and we had very little die. They were very happy even to the end. I think it's just a matter of management. I mean, we only grew them to 8 weeks. We didn't extend that out.
Right.
But in compare them to dual purpose, they're not going to go around and scratch. They're not going to mate and
Mm-hmm.
create another Cornish cross. If you let them go past 8 weeks, they're gonna be heavy and they're not gonna be happy and it's gonna be pitiful. If you leave
Gotcha.
them out in the sun and they don't have shade and you don't give them constant water and you constantly give them food, they're
Right.
gonna overeat. They are bred to eat. Listen, here's what attracted me to it. They grow twice the weight in half the time on the same amount of feed as a dual purpose breed.
Right.
So that's a no-brainer, and it's the meat we're used to. And in 51 days, we had these nice 4.5 pound chicken carcasses in our freezer. Now, the dual purpose, though, if you're looking for sustainability, it's a no-brainer. You got to go with the dual purpose. This is why I do both. As long as the Cornish cross is there, we will bring those in. But as long as I'm alive, I'll also have dual purpose because you have a rooster and you have hens and you can have reproduction and you're good.
Right, right. Yeah, and this is something that well, first of all, here in Hawaii, almost everyone who raises chickens for meat will only do the Cornish cross.
Yeah.
But what you're making me think of is the fact that in Europe, when you buy a chicken, particularly the countries I most remember seeing this in were France and Switzerland,
Hmm.
even in the supermarket, it will say raised minimum 90 days, which is such a different mentality from
Wow.
the
Yeah.
American
Okay.
breeders, who
Yeah.
want 45 days. Like you go past 45 days, you're a liability now, right?
Yeah.
People in Europe want to be assured that their chicken has been raised on grass for at least 90 days, that it lived at least 90 days. They don't want fast production. They want
Yeah.
juicy production. They want flavor
Yeah.
production. And yeah, I always say to people, this is why your recipes don't come out the same. You got to do,
Yeah.
the way that
Yeah.
our
They're gonna have to
parents
go with a
did. Right. The
dual
dual
purpose
purpose,
chicken for that.
old
Which is
fashioned
totally
chicken.
fine. I mean, it depends on what your goal is. I mean,
Right.
if it, and listen, I've taken dual purpose. My breeder had like 30, I think, chickens that she wasn't able to sell because she didn't account for the Monday being a holiday and she couldn't ship them out. I think they were going to Hawaii. Anyway, she couldn't ship them out. She says, "Hey, do you want them?" I said, heck yes. Let's have an experiment. And I brought those chickens in and I said, "We'll raise them for meat." And they were dual purpose. And I knew I had to raise them to 16 weeks, but I was desperate to push them and see how little I could do this on. I said, "I'm going to feed them 2 bags of feed up to 8 weeks old." So even by the last 4 weeks of it, I was rationing it. But the trick was, even from day one, I put them out in a pen in the grass.
Yeah.
Okay. And then by the time they were 4 weeks old or 3 weeks old, they were in a chickshaw, no fence around them, nothing, totally free ranging at 3 weeks old, supplementing their feed a little bit in the morning, rationing it out. And by the 8 weeks, I didn't feed them anymore. And I raised them till they were 16 weeks old. They were just totally free ranging. And you're not going to believe this, but I had some other that I was raising conventionally on grain at that time. And the ones that were free range weighed a little bit more at butchering.
I
and
remember this story.
I could not, so it's like it was just over $1 a pound for organic free range meat. So if you're going to raise, you want that nice, you want the European style chicken, slow cook, or you want sustainability, try the free range, total free range method.
Right. Yeah, and when I lived in New Jersey, I used to go out to Amish country a lot to get my chicken and milk and all that stuff. And I remember one farmer had, I don't know if it was a black Australope, but it was a black chicken. That's all I remember. It had black feathers and it had this really dark meat, and they were smaller, and they were really dark meat and really yellow fat. Oh my God, it was so good. It was it just resonates, I just in my memory, how delicious this bird was. And I remember him telling me that this was before I even knew anything. All I remember is black feathers, small chicken, and just out of this world, delicious. But I remember him saying that it was definitely like a more wild variety that, thrived more just hanging out, doing what it wanted to do versus eating feed. And I was, plenty happy to eat a smaller bird with that much more flavor.
Yeah, and they are more tasty. So it just depends on what your goal and desire is.
Right. And one last person is Sandra Roberts, had some questions. Many of them are kind of the same. She talks about keeping the chickens from eating her veggies, but still giving them space to forage in the yard, which I think we discussed a little bit with the chickshaw, unless you have something more specific that you can recommend, with them going into her vegetables and eating those before she can get to them. And then, as far as being in a northern climate, she's in Northwest New Jersey, which is quite chilly. And, she wants to know how to make it, how to make it through winter without swearing about the frozen water.
Oh, okay. Well, you could, I wrote an article about that, the 48 ways to keep chickens happy during the winter.
Oh, nice.
I mean, I could spend an hour talking about that, but briefly, they make, you put your water up at night. I realize it's probably going to be below freezing a lot up there in New Jersey, and that is a big problem. So they do make electric waterers that keep the water warm.
Right.
That aren't that expensive and don't use that much electricity. So that's probably what I would do there. Also, I don't know if you're in a neighborhood or on a farm, but you could give them a greenhouse, and it doesn't have to be crazy. I mean, I slapped together a greenhouse in a half a day. I mean, it could just be a lean-to with plastic over it.
Right.
I even leaned an old glass door onto some sticks. You could lean them onto some straw bales and put some straw bales to the wall to make walls for it on either side. And then you could keep your water in that.
Right.
I mean, a greenhouse can make a significant change. And then you put your waterer up at night because the chickens aren't going to be drinking anyway. Put your water in that greenhouse. The chickens might like to go in that greenhouse during the day, sort of a sunroom. So probably the easiest way would be that electric water heater. The other easiest way would be the greenhouse. I'm fortunate enough to have a body of water above where the chickens are. That's part of permaculture, is taking advantage of the different landscapes and using gravity when you can. So I have a pond that I siphon a little bit of water down through my chickens into a bowl, and then it goes back out an exit line and back down to the creek where it was going to go anyway. And that is what I call the everflow waterer, because it never freezes and it's always clean. We have ducks and they're terrible to dirty up the water. And all the dirt settles in the bottom of the bowl, and you just clean it out every once in a while. But that's awesome too, because not only does it keep the water unfrozen and clean in the summer, it's also cool. The water stays cool.
Right.
So I don't know if you have a body of water above you and a creek below you. Probably not. Most people don't have that, but you could certainly do the water heater, and if you're a little more adventurous, the greenhouse.
Is there any way to use the chicken's own body heat to keep the temperature where the water is above freezing? Does that make
Maybe
sense?
if they're gonna stay in one place. So
Right.
if they're in a coop and they're not getting out, then you're gonna have somebody body heat from them, but not much. I mean, if you're gonna get a significant amount of body heat, that's gonna mean they're gonna be close to it, and if they're close to it, it's gonna be a nasty, dirty water. So that one's a
Yeah.
little tricky. You're not gonna gain much.
Right. You know, the reason why I thought of that is because in Turkey, I was able to visit caves, and in Spain, and all of the caves from caveman time into not necessarily modern era per se, but
Yeah.
tribal times. People would go into caves for protection or whatever. Like entire societies lived in there,
Yeah.
and what they had were these little nooks at the top of the walls. These little just carved in areas that looked like you could put a candle in there. But what it was is pigeons would go in there. And so the pigeons would come in there and they would keep the caves warm for people.
Nice.
And so that's one of the reasons why I thought well, is there some way to employ the chicken's actual body heat? But yeah, I guess there would be some experimentation. And like you said, if they're in the coop all the time, that it does require them to be in the coop during that time as much as possible.
Yes.
All right. Well, tell us about your movie, because all of this, I believe, is explained in the movie, correct?
Yes, you could actually, my claim to fame is that I can teach you in one evening everything you need to know about raising chickens, plus some, from hatching to the plate. In just one evening, 2.5 hours, my movie, Permaculture Chickens. You can find out more about that at abundantpermaculture.com. You can actually go to abundantpermaculture.com and sign up for my free video class. I mean, there's a place there. You give your email, you join my email list, and I drip out, or actually give you right away, my 3-part training series on how to raise chickens. And then if you like that, you're given the opportunity to actually purchase the film and invest in yourself and your food source.
It's a small investment for the amount of information, because it's not even just you. It's you've got Joel Salatin in there.
Yeah.
You've got people talking about what we touched on, which is chicken diseases and what kind of native plants might be growing near you. By the way, I watched that, and I've got several of them growing wild in my yard or my neighbor's yard. So
Nice.
like
Good.
all these things that you can do to kind of enhance the immunity of your flock. What are some of the other things that you touch on in the movie?
How to put them to work. There are 8 different jobs that a chicken can do. How to save money, how to cut feed costs 100%, how to breed them back. So, it's not an easy topic. I mean, there's some complication to inbreeding, like selecting and, watching out for what we talked about before, the inbreeding you want to watch out for. So those kinds of things. Oh, even, with Joel Salatin, we go into a little bit about, hey, you want to make this a business, here's maybe where you can get started.
Right. Yeah. And, I think that's, some people, I guess, depending on where they live, maybe don't realize, like, how do I get rid of the extra eggs if I can't eat that many eggs? And, to me, it's a no-brainer. You put a cooler out front and you say eggs, you collect the money. But that doesn't necessarily happen everywhere. So I can see where some people might be stumped on that and other opportunities for whether it's, exchange or dealing with local grocers or what have you.
Yeah.
So there's definitely a lot there. And last question, how are the beautiful one, Mr. Brown, and Miss Thang?
They're doing good. We're stuck inside right now. We got a lot of smoke from the wildfires in North Carolina.
Ouch! I didn't even realize.
Everybody's doing good. I hear them out there playing nicely right now. I think they're putting together puzzles.
Nice. Yeah, why Mr. Brown? Your last name is Rhodes.
I know. We get that. That must be the most popular question on our blog where we document our lives.
Well, my husband is Mr. Brown, so.
Oh, that's fun. No, he likes that book by Dr. Seuss.
Oh, okay.
Can you?
That's great. That's great. Well, you definitely have a lovely family, and I wish you the best of luck. And yes, definitely, please, everybody, abundantpermaculture.com. That's abundantpermaculture.com. Justin Rhodes, you can also check out his YouTube channel, which you haven't claimed the URL, but just look up Justin Rhodes, or Abundant Permaculture or Chicken Permaculture on YouTube, and you should be able to find him. And he's got on abundantpermaculture.com/free-chicken-videos, and you can sign up to watch his videos. The man has given away a ton of fantastic information. Please go and support him. Thank you so much for being on the show, Justin.
Thank you for having me. It was fun.
Okay, great. Have a great day. We'll talk to you soon.
Okay.
Alrighty. The Nutrition Heretic Podcast is a production of Savor the Journey, LLC. Our audio editor is Nikola Popovich. Our podcast manager is Crystal McLean, and our operations manager is Linda Hansen. I'm your host, Adrian Hugh, the Nutrition Heretic. You can find us at nutritionheretic.com, where you can download the Nutrition Heretic's free shit list of 7 health foods to avoid like the plague. You can also listen to previous episodes at nutritionheretic.com/podcast. Be sure to like us on social media for updates. Our Facebook page is facebook.com/nutritionheretic and on Twitter @NutriHeretic. Contact us with show ideas, questions, or if you just want to be a guest. And don't forget to rate our podcast on iTunes and Stitcher. Thanks.